Senator Barrasso.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I noted in the chairman's opening remarks, he commented that one of the goals here is to keep America competitive in the global clean energy economy. And those of us from the Rocky Mountain West have concerns. We want to just keep America competitive in the world. And we think that's not happening under this administration, and many of the regulations and rules and burdensome and expensive and time-consuming red tape that is being applied by this administration to the real job creators in this country. Now, Mr. Secretary, when I take a look at this legislation, the purpose of which is to reduce carbon emissions from electric utilities, but the administration has already issued regulations designed to reduce carbon emissions from utilities. So the question is, if Congress adopts this legislation, would the administration then turn around and repeal the regulations that were designed to reduce carbon emissions from utilities?
Senator, thank you for the question. I think you're referring to Clean Air Act regulations. And the Clean Air Act has a 40-year history of protecting public health in this country, of keeping the air clean, improving the quality of life, and I would add, of increasing GDP in this country.
The question gets down to the administration repeatedly in 2009, 2010, and you were part of the administration, said that Congress had to pass a cap-and-trade bill so that the EPA wouldn't have to issue regulations to reduce carbon emissions. So to pass this, or we're going to do that. So if I'm looking for one question today from this administration, this is the question. Is the administration willing to repeal these regulations instead of just wrapping the country up in additional red tape by this piece of legislation?
Senator, the Clean Air Act has delivered enormous benefits for the American people over 40 years.
So the answer, yes or no?
We're not looking to amend the Clean Air Act.
So your goal is if you would put this on top of all the excessive regulations, and we can use whether the phrase excessive is the right or wrong one. I believe it is the right one. So this would be on top, piled on top of what the job creators are facing today. Okay, thank you. Scientific American ran a study Monday entitled Asian Demand Forecast Boom for Coal. You keep talking about, the administration talks about what's going on around the world and China leading the way. Well, they're going to widen the gap with the United States as the world's largest coal-producing country by the end of the decade. By 2020, China will produce 4.5 billion metric tons of coal annually, it says, reflecting a 3.5% compound annual growth rate over the next 8 years. It goes on to say that Asian forecasts contrast sharply to projections for the United States, which is expected to see sagging demand as power plants undergo fuel switching. The article explains that China's coal will be used to meet demand in its electric power and steel-making sectors. So if Congress adopts legislation which increases electricity costs by as much as 30%, how are we going to be able to compete economically with China?
Well, that wouldn't be legislation on the clean energy standards, Senator. This is legislation that we can enact while keeping prices low, while ensuring equity among regions, and while promoting technological innovation. I'm not familiar with the article that you just cited, but it may be that in part the numbers that you're repeating have something to do with what Dr. Grunsbeck was talking about, the growth in the Chinese economy.
And the additional expense of energy in the United States under additional rules and regulations. Mr. Secretary, the EPA's endangerment finding says 6 greenhouse gases endanger both the public health and the public welfare of current and future generations. I assume you agree with that statement. I'm going through your book and other things. Thank you. I'd like to share with you what are the health impacts of unemployment, because we're considering legislation that will effectively shut down American coal plants, coal mines, increase electricity rates an average of 18%, as much as 30%. With higher electricity rates, businesses will have less money to invest and to create jobs. So on Sunday, the New York Times ran an op-ed, and it is called The Human Disaster of Unemployment. The human disaster of unemployment. And we have long-term chronic unemployment in this country now that's impacting families all across the country. The article says that chronic unemployment causes a 50 to 100% increase in the death rate for older male workers in the years following loss of a job. The reason for this include increase in suicide rate by 4 additional suicides a day in the United States as a result of this, 25% increase, higher risk of dying from cancer. It also explains that unemployment leads to a higher probability of divorce, 18% increase when a husband loses his job, a 13% increase when a wife loses her job. I mean, it is an article that I would recommend that the White House takes seriously into consideration and have thoughts about the impact of the regulations as well as legislation when they lose jobs in the effort to, I think, as you said, lead the world in clean energy. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired.
Did either of the witnesses want to respond? If not, we'll go to the next question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just say that Senator Barrasso, I grew up in the great state of Michigan, and that's a state that's been plagued by unemployment over a number of decades. The human toll of unemployment is terrible, and as you say. Let's make sure that we are bringing capital off the sidelines for investing in our energy economy. Let's position the United States to win the energy race of the future. That's exactly what a clean energy standard can do. Thank you.